The Honorable, welcome.
Thank you, Representative Moonen, Senator Carney, members of the committee. Appreciate this opportunity. I think I'm the first person to speak today that actually helped craft Maine's yellow flag law. And I know components of that questions have been asked, particularly from a couple of legislators that I can answer that probably 99% of the population can't. So feel free to ask me questions related to mental health or any other thing. I'm here to testify in opposition to this legislation. I'm the executive director of the Sportsman's Alliance of Maine Institute for Legislative Action. I'm not going to read my testimony. I'm going to speak to why this bill was introduced and the incredible moment in time in which people came together in a very controversial subject area and worked together, Democrat, Republican, unenrolled. The legislature, the vast majority of the legislature supported Maine's yellow flag law. The governor made changes to that law most recently. The bill went through this committee to improve the law even further. But I would caution you that for those that are advocating for red flag, be careful what you ask for. Because red flag, if you just go to Massachusetts and do a little bit of research, you'll find in the 5 years that red flag has been in Massachusetts with 5 million people, there have been, I believe, 56 petitions and 36 or 7 actual petitions granted by the court. Maine has had a red flag law for almost 4 years. I'll get to yellow flag law, I'm sorry. And it's been used 230 times in some of the most dangerous situations anyone can imagine. That law, I believe, is an amazing success. It was designed for early intervention. Red flag petitions the court to take a person's firearms. Yellow flag is an intervention at a time of crisis. Some of you have tried, or maybe inadvertently, confused people into believing you have to have a mental condition to be yellow flagged. You do not. A police officer, all they have to do is have probable cause to believe there's some sort of incident happening. They don't make that judgment. That's what the mental assessment is for. And even in that situation, Spurwink, who has a contract with the state, does not make a diagnosis. They just confirm that the police officer taking this person into custody was warranted and there was a mental health component involved. Look up the term psychosis under mental health. It can be anything from a bad reaction to medication, alcohol, pharmaceutical drug inappropriately used. There's all kinds of ways in which an individual can have a crisis without it being mental health.
Mr. Trahan, I'm sorry to interrupt, but your time has expired. Let's see if, can you wrap up in a sentence and then we'll see if have questions.
Sure. Anyone in Maine can do a yellow flag, including the family of Robert Card. They inadvertently did exactly that because they actually created probable cause for the Saginaw Sheriff's Office to take Robert Card into custody. When they, under the protective custody statute, did Section 2, which is a very unknown component of protective custody that allows a third-party informant to establish probable cause for a police officer to take a person into protective custody. That was just unfortunately not done by the sheriff involved.
Thank you. We've got some committee member questions. I also saw a committee member just join us on Zoom. Representative Trahan, Representative Hagan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I am David Hagan. I represent House District 36, Hampden and Newburgh.
Welcome. Sorry, getting my Daves confused. I saw a number of hands. I'll start with Representative Moriarty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Mr. Trahan, you are a terrific resource, and I really sincerely wish we had a whole lot more time to listen to you and exchange with you. I was just trying to reach for my copy of the yellow flag law, which I think was enacted before I was elected in the special session in the spring of 2019. But my recollection is that an officer has to take a person into protective custody based upon probable cause that the person is mentally ill and poses a risk to self or others. So isn't an officer's determination of the existence of mental illness a necessary part to the whole rollout of the yellow flag process?
Sure, I believe that that question can be answered through education. An officer, well, what you're asking is much like some of the other questions that have been asked. It's, as a lawyer, good lawyer does, it's leading. A mental health condition does not have to be diagnosed by the police officer. All they have to do is establish probable cause that there's a component of it involved in what is happening. Because the family of Robert Card repeatedly said that he was losing it, he was unstable, he had a mental health condition, that established probable cause. You do not need to have the diagnosis by the police officer. All you had to do was have the officer take them into custody, observe odd behavior, and then let the Spurwink system, the assessment, which takes less than half an hour, to confirm that there's something there. At that point is when the court then weighs whether to take the firearms away. There is no mental health condition established. There is a risk intervention. That is why I believe yellow flag is better than red flag, is because it's an intervention at that moment of crisis. It was always there, and the independent commission confirmed that there was always probable cause for more than just a yellow flag, but for an assault that happened down in New York and terrorizing, a felony. In all of those cases, even if the mental health component was not qualified by the court could have said as a condition of release, and given the fact that you're charged with criminal terrorizing and assault, as a condition of release, you lose your gun rights. There were 3 ways to do that.
Follow-up, Representative Moriarty?
It's something different altogether. I think, Mr. Trahan, you mentioned that the current bill before us, the governor's bill on the yellow flag law, was an improvement. I don't recall if your organization supported or opposed that bill.
Yeah, we testified neither for nor against. Let me tell you what the improvement is, because I don't think it makes it perfect. Part of the reason that the governor had to submit extending timelines in the process was because our courts, our DAs, our defense attorneys, our police officers are overwhelmed now. We have 3,000 temporary orders a year that involve firearm removal, which 1,000 become permanent. Now we have 300, 350, 400 new yellow flags being introduced to this overburdened system. I believe in my heart, if you really want to save lives, you have an independent investigation done of the needs out there in the field, particularly in rural areas, for the district attorneys to get more resources, more mental health services for specifically this purpose, which are the crisis intervention teams the governor is bringing forward, which I lobbied her extensively after the shooting, and I believe the speaker's bill, I made 5 changes to that to improve it. You got that component. You need defense because the yellow flag law requires defense. The indigent services are non-existent. We're missing defense attorneys. We need to address that problem. And police officers training. If the general public knew, and individual family members knew, by making a call to a police officer and saying, Uncle Joe is saying really weird things, he's scaring me, establishes probable cause, and they can remain confidential, as the Card family wanted, his son and his family members wanted to remain confidential, they would not have done a red flag based on the 2 police reports I've read. That family, no, I don't think the police officers knew it, and I don't think the family knew it. They had already established probable cause for a yellow flag by bringing that claim forward. Once it was substantiated by multiple sources, including the military and other police officers, there was more than enough probable cause for a yellow flag, assault, arrest, and terrorizing. We have the tools that are there. We just need the resources to educate everyone involved and deliver them the services they need to do their job right.
Other questions? Representative Poirier and then Senator Bailey.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And thank you for bringing up the intervention aspect as well, because we have received reports on when yellow flags have been called upon, and there were many on that list that were listed as people who were suicidal. So I know it's being used for that. My question would be, why was Maine's yellow flag law delayed, and why is it connected to mental health?
Yeah, first of all, Maine's yellow flag law was delayed, and Sorry, folks, but this is the truth. There were two things that needed to be done under the Maine law. A telemedicine component developed, which was delayed for almost a year. Some mandatory training, which took a while to happen, well over a year. And then the third thing was the hospitals needed to comply. The hospitals refused to take people. Only a few of them participated, and they resisted heavily. Whether it was what they didn't support the law or whether they were afraid of having dangerous people in their facilities, they did not assist in helping us get the telemedicine component resolved and find a place that they felt safe to do the assessments. They didn't. They resisted. It got so arrogant from the hospital associations. I was in a public hearing when they said that they had submitted legislation requiring the state to do the assessment here at AmHigh, and they did it on purpose to tweak the legislature and the governor's office. They own some responsibility for the delay in the implementation of yellow flag. Had the law been implemented properly from the beginning, it is likely we would have been doing hundreds more. We're still doing 7 times more than Massachusetts with 4 times the population. And we're doing it for the most dangerous people in our communities. Anyone who criticizes that, just look at the facts. Separate your own politics and the gun control debate from the actual results of the yellow flag law. And you will find that it is almost 5 times more effective than Massachusetts red flag. And by the way, thank you to all the people who participated in creating that law, including Senator Carpenter, an AG, Governor Mills, an AG, Derek Langhauser, one of the best legal minds I know, John Chapman, an attorney from Portland who defends police officers in shootings, and Senator Kine, who had the courage to put the bill in.
I think Representative Poirier might have a follow-up for you.
Yeah.
Sure.
Could you just elaborate on why mental health was an aspect?
Sure,
of
absolutely.
its creation?
We had an existing system that was growing exponentially in the amount of incidents in which mental health was a component of a crime or an alleged crime. I had one police officer on the radio say the other day that they had seen an increase of 700%. Most of the shootings in the country involve a component of suicide, and the vast majority of these heinous crimes involve a mental health component. It was the obvious avenue. We already had this existing law with 30 years of precedent, constitutional challenge that we could work from. That was why I believe it was chosen. It was Governor Mills who said to me in a meeting, this seems to be the best approach and the best avenue to get to these individuals. Now, this is the part that I'm going to answer your question. Police officers who said to me over and over again, we go to these homes over and over again. We watch the mental status of these individuals decline, whether it's because they're a widow or because they're depressed or whatever. They take them into protective custody over and over again and can't get them help. And I'll never forget the one officer saying to me, there's nothing more moving to me than to release somebody from protective custody knowing they're going to go home and take their life. That was when I decided personally that I had to do something. And I could, in my position, work with the governor to get that bill passed. It was a small miracle given the controversy around red flag at the time. And that's why it's so hard for those that worked on it, had the courage to stand up to some pretty heavy criticisms and come up with a good law. I would ask those that have criticized it inappropriately, I believe, to stop that. That law has saved potentially 230 people from suicide, police shootings, other crimes. Why would you criticize a law that has done that? And so for me, do your thing politically, but let's build on a good law and stop trying to demean it for political gain.
Senator Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Trahan, for acknowledging that there are times that the criteria for the yellow flag is met, but for whatever reason, law enforcement does not use it. So I'm going to ask you the question I asked the person previously, is what is the recourse for a family member where they do everything they should be doing and they contact the police, they give the police the probable cause, and the police fails to act?
Thank you for asking that question, Representative, because Senator, I'm sorry. Having created our state's government oversight agency and its government oversight committee, I have for my entire political career, been committed to accountability. The police officers, the military, everyone involved, all along the way, I've written this, did not do their job. And for that, they have to live with it. Where is the accountability? The sheriff's office almost instantly did a report after the shooting saying that there was no probable cause. Everything that was said in that report was challenged and overturned by the independent commission. Where is the accountability? Who is saying to these sheriffs, we want you to come in and we want you to explain. Now that this has all been dispelled and this commission has challenged you on this, you did an investigation, the complete opposite. Why aren't they being held accountable? How about the Captain Reamer, who all along the way was discouraging people from doing red flags, from moving forward to taking Card into custody? Where is his accountability? I'm the one who asked the Senator Collins to do an IG investigation of the military on this. Where are the outcries out there to fix our system that failed? Because this is what I hope comes of this debate. And I believe the governor is right. We have a system failure that needs to be fixed, and she's trying to submit legislation that will fix that system, and so am I. We have only seen the tip of the iceberg as to what happened with Robert Card. We have not seen the military results of the IG investigation. What I say to you is what I spoke of earlier. Our system needs fixing. It needs the resources to do this right. And if we can get a system that starts with the military, communicates with the state of origin in which this happens, like New York, it communicates with the jurisdiction at the sheriff's office, the state police, the Department of Public Safety. When the military sends a soldier like this in crisis, who they just deemed a danger, back to their state. That system is what will save lives. You fix that, that will fix not only our problem here in our state, but every state in the nation.
Other questions from the committee? Representative Kuhn? Oh, sorry. Senator Bailey, do you need a follow-up?
Mr. Paulo, maybe I missed it, but I didn't hear you answer my question.
What is the family's
Recourse? Yes. What can a family?
You will be seeing it in probably a $400 million civil lawsuit challenging the actions of the individuals involved, and they will be held accountable through the civil courts. That's their, and it's unfortunate because I would prefer to prevent that shooting than to have to take it to court for the next 5 years to have the family held whole.
Representative Kuhn.
I mean, my question was basically the same, trying to get an answer to Senator Bailey's question. I suppose it's been answered.
Representative
Don't
Beck?
suppose, Representative. I answered your question. There's civil courts
Mr. Trahan,
to address.
What point of order?
she didn't ask you questions, so I'm going to ask you to stop responding. Representative Beck, please go ahead with your question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Trahan, I think we can all acknowledge the fact that there have been obvious benefits to the yellow flag law and appreciate the work you and so many other folks did. But so many of the mental health advocates that have come before this committee have really decried the stigma that seems to be attached to mental health in the yellow flag law, and they're encouraging passage of this piece of legislation. Why do you think that is?
But before you proceed, your mic is off. Could I get you to turn it back on? The button is on the back side of the podium. Yeah. Thank you, Representative Lee.
I really just want to
Representative, I met with two people from the mental health community, of which one had served over 30 years, encouraging me to use my influence to make those changes to the system. They had stressed to me concerns that they have around being engaged with individuals they know are getting more and more dangerous in their inability to control them or to get access to take firearms away. That problem existed for 35 years. The people I worked with, we jumped in and tried to fix that problem. We did an intervention that has now led to those individuals being treated over and over again, not only having their weapons removed, but getting access to care. In the bill, there's a provision in the statute that requires them to be connected to resources. That is an intervention that doesn't just take a person's guns and leaves them to their own devices. It gets them connected to a resource. And when I explain that to these mental health workers, they go, had no idea that that provision was in there. And they thought it was wonderful. Once I had explained the law to them, they supported it and thought it was wonderful. I believe this committee and the legislature would benefit from a complete explanation of the yellow flag law and its implications and how it's used. Because a lot of things that have been said during these hearings is just not true.
Thank you. Question, Representative Lee.
I think we agree on a lot of things. So I think we agree that on the whole, yellow flag law is net beneficial. I think we agree that the present bill has flaws. I think we agree that Lewiston is largely the product of systemic failures. Do we also agree, though, that mental illness is an imperfect proxy for dangerousness?
If I could answer that question, I'd probably be God. Because we can't look into anybody's mind and say that person has mental health and they're dangerous. That emerges through time. All we can do when we're making our laws is trying to find a law that captures them in the system for intervention to connect them to services and care. So your question, again, like some of the other questions that were asked today, are nearly impossible to answer. All we can do as an imperfect society is try to create laws that can intervene. And we had them with Robert Card. We had several laws that could have intervened. Again, I get back to my point. Had individuals understood the law, how to use it, had they listened to the Card family, that shooting in Lewiston likely would not have happened. You're trying to connect this to only mental health. Let me tell you how a mental health condition can be revealed and then gone in 2 days. When I was working as a logger, I had some serious health issues related to inflammation. I was given a drug called Clinarol. I became dehydrated within probably 6 hours, disoriented and acting irrational. My family called my doctor and said, get him hydrated, do not let him take any more medication, and observe him closely. That can be considered a temporary mental condition. Those are the types of incidents that the law is designed to capture before a person becomes violent or hurts themselves. Had I traveled down the road and crashed into somebody and injured them, would I have been responsible because I was on a medication that caused me to have a psychosis? Those situations happen 1,000 times every day in Maine. And the best we can do is to create a system that captures them early, intervenes, and then gets that person care. Taking my guns away may feel good, and it may look good politically for a little while, but will it save those lives? Well, the experience with Yellow Flag has said that law will.
Follow-up, Representative Lee?
I think that was the answer to 5 or 6 questions, but not any of that I asked. So
You want to ask
let me try to do a
please?
different path, okay?
Yeah.
Are there individuals who are potentially dangerous who do not have a mental illness?
I probably didn't want to say this publicly, but I will. I know a young man who murdered his mother, stepfather, brother, killed his dog and burned his house down. I didn't consider him to be mentally ill, but I knew he was bad from the day I met him. Now, I wish I could do it like a Hollywood movie and predict that individual would commit those crimes and lock them up, but I can't because it's called a free society. Again, all we can do is try to build laws that capture them early and get them help. This young man's now in jail, and he will be for the rest of his life.
Other questions from the committee? Representative Henderson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No question. Just want to thank you for your expertise and clarity in this proceeding.
Thank you.
Other questions? Seeing none, thank you. We have gone past another half-hour block, so we'll switch back to those in favor, and I will call Sergeant Colin Adams again. Is that person here?